My wife is donating our joint savings to an anonymous street musician in secret. It sounds insane, right? Like something out of a bad indie film or a tabloid headline designed to make you shake your head and mutter about people's lives. But it's real. It's happening. And the worst part? I think I'm the only one who knows. Or rather, the only one who truly knows, who sees the whole damn picture while everyone else just sees a guy with a guitar and a mournful song. Before you hit that X button or scroll past, do me a solid. If you're finding yourself drawn into this messed up story, if you feel that knot in your stomach tightening like mine does every time I think about it, then smash that subscribe button. Hit the like, share it with anyone you think needs a dose of whatever this is, and leave a comment. I need to know I'm not completely alone in this, that someone out there gets it. Her name is Sarah, has been for 12 years. 12 years of building something, brick by brick, like we were constructing our own little American dream. A decent house in the suburbs, 2 cars in the garage, nothing flashy, just reliable. A steady job for me in logistics, moving things, making sure the world kept turning, one shipment at a time. And Sarah, she was the glue, the organizer, the one who remembered birthdays, who kept the finances tighter than a drum, who planned our vacations down to the last minute. She was my rock, my partner, the person I'd always believed I'd grow old with. We had a joint account, the kind where you merge everything, where it all became ours. Every dollar earned, every bonus, every tax refund, it all went into that one pot. We built it up, slowly, steadily, for a down payment on a bigger place, for retirement, for emergencies, for the what-ifs that life inevitably throws at you. It was our future, solidified in numbers, managed with a sensible, almost boring diligence. The first time I noticed something was off, it was small, insignificant really. We were out on a Saturday, just grabbing lunch, walking through downtown. There's this one corner near the old bookstore where this guy always plays. He's good, I'll give him that. Acoustic guitar, kind of a bluesy, folky sound. His voice is gravelly, tells a story. Most people toss him $1 or $2, a bit of spare change. We usually do too, $1, maybe $5 if the mood strikes. Sarah always smiles, even puts a few extra coins in. But this time, she stopped. She actually stopped and watched him for a good 5 minutes. He was playing a song I'd never heard, something raw and full of pain. His eyes were closed, face tilted up towards the sky, like he was pouring his soul into every strum. Sarah just stood there, transfixed. I nudged her, a little impatient. Come on, babe, we're gonna miss the matinee. She blinked, shook her head, and then, as we turned to walk away, she reached into her purse. Not for her wallet, but for a thicker envelope. It looked like cash. She quickly slipped it into his open guitar case, her hand moving so fast, so discreetly I almost didn't see it. She then grabbed my arm, a little too tightly, and pulled me along. He's really feeling it today, she'd said, her voice a little breathless. I just nodded, chalking it up to her being empathetic, always feeling for the underdog. Then it happened again, and again. It became a pattern. Every time we were downtown, every time we passed that corner, she'd find a way to get to him. Sometimes it was a quick dash when I was looking at something in a shop window. Other times, she'd say she needed to use the restroom, and when she came back, a significant chunk of cash would be gone from her purse. I started paying closer attention. I'd see her discreetly slip bills, not coins, into his case, crisp 20s, even a 50 once. It was way more than spare change, way more than what anyone I knew would casually donate. I started to feel this prickle of unease. It was the secrecy, the almost furtive way she did it. It wasn't a public act of charity, it was clandestine. And it was our money, our shared money. One evening I was going through some of our recent bank statements, just doing our monthly budget reconciliation. Sarah's usually the one who handles it, but she'd been working late, so I decided to take it on. That's when I saw it. Multiple withdrawals, smaller at first, then larger, from our joint savings account. Online transfers initiated by Sarah. The description field was always generic. Miscellaneous expense, personal withdrawal, shopping. But the amounts, they were adding up, and they weren't insignificant. They were the kind of sums that make you pause, make you question where the money is going, especially when it's coming out of a fund earmarked for something important. I brought it up casually, trying to keep my tone light, unaccusatory. Hey babe, saw some of these transfers from the savings. Everything okay? We planning a big purchase I forgot about? She just waved a hand, her eyes glued to her phone. Oh, just little things, honey. You know, stocking up on some things, a few unexpected bills. Nothing to worry about. I've got it under control. Her smile was a little too quick, her gaze a little too fleeting. That's when the first real seed of doubt, cold and sharp, planted itself in my gut. I started tracking it, secretly. I checked the online banking app on my phone whenever she wasn't around. I'd look at the transaction history, cross-referencing it with her purse, her spending habits. It wasn't the day-to-day stuff. It was these specific recurring transfers, always just before or just after we'd been downtown. The amounts grew, 100 here, 200 there, then 500, then 1,000. My mind, which was trained to analyze patterns, to anticipate logistics, started piecing together a terrifying mosaic. The street musician, the anonymous cash donations, the depleted savings. It was too much of a coincidence. But the thought itself was so absurd, so out there, that I pushed it away. Sarah, my Sarah, donating our life savings to a stranger on the street. It made no sense. I tried talking to her again, this time with a bit more directness, but still trying to couch it in concern. Sarah, I'm really worried about our savings. We've been taking out quite a bit lately, and I don't see where it's going. Did something happen? Are you having trouble? She got defensive, her eyes flashing. Are you accusing me of something? Do you not trust me with our money? I told you I'm handling it. I'm making responsible decisions. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. And then I realized with a sickening lurch that she was right. I didn't trust her. Not with this. The secrecy, the evasiveness, it had eroded the bedrock of our relationship. One afternoon I decided to play detective. It felt wrong, like a violation of everything we'd built, but the anxiety was eating me alive. I told her I had a late meeting, a lie I regretted the moment it left my lips. Instead, I drove downtown, parked a few blocks away, and walked towards that familiar street corner. The musician was there, the same one. His guitar case was open, a few bills scattered within. He was playing that same haunting melody. I watched from across the street, hidden behind a newspaper stand. Sarah's car pulled up a few minutes later. She parked illegally, jumped out, and walked directly to her turn.
She didn't look around. She didn't make eye contact with anyone else. She just went. I saw her lean down, her back to me, and slide something into his case. It wasn't an envelope this time. It was a wad of bills, a thick wad. She stood up, and for a moment, he looked at her. Just a flicker of recognition, maybe, or just a human acknowledgement. Then she turned and hurried back to her car, driving off before he could even acknowledge her more fully. My heart was hammering. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. This wasn't a whim. This was deliberate, planned. And then I saw it. As she was getting back into her car, she dropped something, a small, folded piece of paper. It fluttered to the ground near the curb. My instinct screamed at me to go get it, to see what it was, but I held back. I watched her drive away. Then, when I was sure no one was looking, I walked over to where she had dropped it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unfold the paper. It was a note. A short, handwritten note. The handwriting was unmistakably Sarah's. It read, "Thank you for the music. It's the only thing that gets me through. Keep playing. For both of us." The words hit me like a physical blow. For both of us. What did that mean? What was she getting through? And who was she playing this song for, if not just herself? I stood there on the busy sidewalk, the noise of the city fading into a dull roar, the note clutched in my trembling hand. The street musician, oblivious, continued his mournful tune. I looked at the bills in his case, at the worn leather of his guitar, and then I looked back at Sarah's car, now disappearing into the traffic. The picture, once fuzzy and unbelievable, was now stark, brutal, and horrifyingly clear. She wasn't just donating money, she was giving it away. A substantial amount of our shared future to a stranger who played sad songs on a street corner. And the note, that note felt like a confession, a plea, a desperate anchor to something I couldn't yet fathom. I felt a profound, bone-deep betrayal, a sense of shock that was so potent it left me numb. My world, the one I'd so carefully built with Sarah, felt like it was crumbling around me, dissolving into a melody I didn't understand, played by a man I didn't know, for reasons I couldn't possibly grasp. And the question that echoed in the hollow space where my trust used to be was simple, yet terrifying. Why? Why was she doing this? What was so broken, so desperate, that she felt compelled to throw our life savings at a street performer? The sun was starting to dip below the buildings, casting long shadows, and all I felt was the deepening darkness inside. The drive home was a blur of angry thoughts and a chilling, hollow silence. Every red light felt like a personal affront, every slow driver a cosmic joke. I replayed the scene over and over. Sarah, furtive, slipping cash to a stranger.
The note, for both of us. The phrase hammered in my skull, a relentless percussion against the frantic beat of my heart. What was she getting through? What was she so desperate for that our future, our stability, our plan meant so little? When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. The perfectly manicured lawn, the cheerful porch light, the subtle scent of honeysuckle from the bush by the front door. It was the picture of suburban normalcy, a facade that suddenly felt paper-thin, riddled with cracks I'd never noticed. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming softly, chopping vegetables. The rhythmic thud of the knife against the cutting board was a stark contrast to the turmoil raging inside me. She looked up as I entered, a bright, genuine smile on her face. "Hey honey, how was your meeting?" The question, so innocent, so routine, felt like a trap. I couldn't tell her I'd spend the afternoon stalking her. I couldn't just blurt out, "I saw you giving $1,000 to that street guy downtown." The sheer absurdity of it, coupled with the fear of her reaction, paralyzed me. It was long, I managed, my voice tight. Productive, though. Good news on the expansion. She nodded, still smiling, and turned back to her chopping. "That's great. We should celebrate this weekend. Maybe try that new Italian place." Italian. Celebration. Our savings account was being systematically bled dry, and she wanted to celebrate with pasta. The disconnect was staggering. I leaned against the counter, the gold granite doing nothing to chill the heat rising in my chest. "Sarah," I started, my voice low, deliberately casual. "I was looking at the joint account earlier, just balancing things. Noticed you've been making some pretty significant withdrawals from savings." Her humming stopped. The knife paused midair. For a fraction of a second, I saw it, a flicker of something in her eyes, a tightening around her mouth. It was gone before I could fully register it, replaced by her usual placid expression. "Oh, those, just investments, honey, little things I'm working on." "Investments." My voice climbed an octave, betraying my sudden surge of anger. "Sarah, those are our retirement funds, our down payment for the lake house. You can't just invest them in whatever it is you're doing without talking to me." She set the knife down, wiped her hands on her apron, and turned to face me fully. Her expression was now one of mild annoyance, the kind she'd reserve for a child who wouldn't stop asking questions. "I am talking to you, and I'm making smart decisions. You know I'm good with money. I always have been." "This isn't about being good with money, Sarah. This is about emptying our savings for who? For what? You're not even telling me." I couldn't hold it in anymore. The controlled facade crumbled. "I saw you today, downtown. I saw you give that musician a huge wad of cash, and I found the note." The color drained from her face. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear, raw and unadulterated, replace the annoyance. She took a step back, bumping into the island. You were watching me." Her voice was a whisper, laced with disbelief and accusation. "I had to. You're draining our future. Why, Sarah? Why are you doing this? That note, for both of us, what is going on?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and desperation. She stared at me, her chest heaving, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. The cheerful kitchen, the smell of onions and garlic, suddenly felt suffocating. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken words, with a chasm that had just opened between us. She wouldn't meet my eyes. When she finally spoke, her voice was raspy, barely audible. It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." I stepped towards her, my hands clasped into fists in my sides. "Tell me why our savings are vanishing into the pocket of a street performer. Tell me what you're getting through that I'm not part of." She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, a tremor running through her. When she opened them, they were brimming with unshed tears, but there was also a new resolve hardening them. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." The words were ripped from me, raw and pained. "Try me, Sarah, because right now, all I understand is betrayal. All I understand is that you're lying to me, and you're systematically dismantling our life together." She let out a shaky breath. "It started a few months ago."
You know how I've been feeling? A bit lost lately. Like something was missing. Lost? You've been stressed about work, maybe, but this is beyond stress. No, it's more than that. It's a deep ache, like a piece of me is gone. And then I heard him. That day, downtown, he was playing this song, and it was like he was singing my pain. It was so raw, so real, and I felt this overwhelming urge to help him, to support that kind of genuine expression. Genuine expression? Sarah, that's thousands of dollars. You can't support someone's genuine expression by bankrupting us. My voice was rising again, uncontrollably. The logical part of my brain was screaming at the sheer irrationality of her explanation, while the hurt, betrayed part was simply reeling. It's not just about the money, Mark, she insisted, her voice gaining a little strength. It's about connection. He's playing for people who are hurting, and I'm hurting. And for a moment, when I give him that money, it feels like he's playing for me, like he understands. He doesn't know you, Sarah. He's a stranger, and you're giving him our life's work, our security. For what? A feeling? I couldn't comprehend it. It was like speaking a foreign language. She looked away, her gaze drifting towards the window. He said he writes his songs based on people's stories. When they give him money, they can tell him something, anything, and he'll try to put it into his music. My blood ran cold. He talks to you? You tell him things? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Sometimes, when I can't hold it in anymore, I tell him about things I miss, things I've lost. The implications hit me like a tidal wave. What was she missing? What had she lost? This wasn't about a street musician's talent. This was about something deeper, something she wasn't sharing with me. What thing, Sarah? What are you telling him that you can't tell me? She flinched, her eyes darting back to me. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with a profound sadness. It's complicated, Mark. It's something I've been carrying for a long time. And you're pouring our money into a stranger's guitar case to process it? I was incredulous. Sarah, this is insane. We're supposed to be a team. We're supposed to face things together. If you're hurting, if you're lost, if you've lost something, you tell me. We figure it out. That's what 12 years together means. She turned her back to me again, her shoulders slumping. It wasn't always like this. Before this, there was a time when I would have told you everything. But something happened. What happened? I pressed, my voice dropping to a strained whisper. What happened to make you hide this from me? What happened to make you drain our savings behind my back? She stayed silent for a long moment, the only sound the gentle hum of the refrigerator. Then she spoke, her voice barely a murmur, but carrying the weight of confession. I lost the baby 3 years ago, remember? My breath hitched. Of course I remembered. The miscarriage. It was devastating. A shared grief we'd navigated together, or so I thought. We'd held each other, cried together, and slowly, painstakingly started to heal. Yes, Sarah, I remember. It was awful, but we moved past it. We talked about it. She shook her head, a single tear finally tracing a path down her cheek. We talked about the grief, Mark, but we never really talked about what came after. The emptiness, the feeling that a part of our future just evaporated. I tried to be strong. I tried to be the same Sarah, but inside, I felt hollowed out. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots, the hollow feeling, the ache, the musician's mournful songs. Was that it? Was she somehow projecting her grief, her lost future onto this stranger and his music? It seemed like such a fragile, desperate connection, but the look on her face told me it was real for her. And this musician? I probed gently, trying to keep my voice even, despite the confusion and lingering anger. You're telling him about the baby? About what you lost? She nodded, her gaze fixed on the floor. I told him that I felt like I'd lost a part of myself, a part of our family, a part of the future we had planned. And he wrote a song for me, for us. The words hung in the air, heavy and charged. A song written for her, about their lost child. It was almost unbearable to contemplate. The man on the corner, a conduit for her pain, a weaver of melodies from her deepest sorrow, and she was paying him handsomely for it. So
All this money, I started, the realization dawning with a chilling clarity. The withdrawals, they're for him to write songs for you? To help you grieve? She finally met my eyes, her own filled with a raw, exposed vulnerability. Yes, it's how I'm coping. It's the only thing that makes the ache bearable. His music. It's like he's giving me pieces of what I lost in a way I can understand. The betrayal still stung, the secrecy gnawed at me, but the depth of her pain, the quiet desperation she'd been hiding, was starting to eclipse my anger. She'd been suffering in silence, carrying this immense burden, and had found a bizarre, expensive solace in the melodies of a stranger. The fact that she hadn't told me that she'd let our finances become entangled in this deeply personal, grief-stricken ritual still hurt, but I could see through the haze of my own shock that her actions, however misguided, stemmed from a place of profound emotional need. "Sarah," I said, my voice softer now, tinged with exhaustion and a dawning, unwelcome empathy. "Why didn't you tell me? You could have told me. We could have found a way. Together." She choked back a sob. "I was ashamed, Mark. Ashamed that I couldn't just get over it. Ashamed that I still felt this way after so long. Ashamed that I felt like I was failing you, failing us, by not being able to move on. And then I heard him, and it felt like a lifeline, and I didn't want to let go." I walked over to her, slowly, and put my hands on her shoulders. She felt fragile, brittle. "It's okay to be ashamed. It's okay to hurt. But you don't have to do this alone. You never have to do this alone." She leaned into my touch, her body shaking with silent sobs. The tension in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile, uncertain peace. I held her, stroking her hair, letting the storm of emotions, anger, confusion, betrayal, hurt, and a nascent flicker of understanding, wash over me. We stood there for a long time, the quiet of the house a stark contrast to the turmoil that had just erupted. After a while, she pulled away, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Her face was red and swollen, but her gaze was clearer now, less haunted. "I'm sorry, Mark. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I was drowning." "I know," I said, my voice rough. "I know you were drowning, but we're going to figure this out. We'll talk, really talk, and we'll deal with the money. We'll sort it out." She nodded, a weak, watery smile touching her lips. "Okay, we will." Just as a fragile sense of resolution began to settle, her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, her brow furrowing as she read the message. "Who is that?" I asked, still holding her hand.
She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a renewed wave of alarm, but this time it was different. It was sharper, more immediate. It's him, the musician." My stomach lurched. "What does he want?" She scrolled through the message, her breath catching in her throat. Her face paled. He says he needs more. He says the last payment, it wasn't enough to cover everything." "Everything? What everything?" The fragile piece shattered instantly, replaced by a fresh surge of dread. He says he needs it by Friday, or he'll have to tell people." "Tell people what?" I demanded, my voice rising again, the fear now a cold, sharp spike in my gut. "Tell people what, Sarah? What is he going to tell them that you're so terrified of?" She looked at me, her eyes wide with a horror I'd never seen before. Her voice was a strangled whisper. "He knows about the baby, Mark. He knows everything." The world tilted. The kitchen seemed to spin. He knew. The stranger with the guitar knew about our lost child, and he was threatening to expose it. The betrayal wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about our deepest, most private sorrow being weaponized, held over us by a man who played sad songs on a street corner. And the chilling, horrifying question that echoed in the sudden, suffocating silence was, how? How did he know? And what else did he know? The color drained from Sarah's face, leaving it a ghostly white. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes, usually so expressive, were wide and vacant, staring at some point beyond my shoulder,
lost in a terror I was only just beginning to grasp. The phone slipped from her trembling fingers, clattering onto the granite countertop. The cheerful hum of the refrigerator seemed to amplify the deafening silence that followed. How? I finally managed to rasp, the word torn from my throat. How does he know, Sarah? What did you tell him? My voice was a strained, reedy thing, stripped of its earlier anger, replaced by a gnawing, icy fear. The raw vulnerability I'd just witnessed moments ago was now overlaid with a shadow, a dark secret that had somehow leaked out and taken on a life of its own. She flinched at my question, as if struck. Her gaze snapped back to mine, and the panic in her eyes was palpable. I don't know, she stammered, her voice choked with tears. I told him about the baby, about how I felt like I'd lost a piece of myself, a part of our future. I told him about the emptiness. He asked me questions, and I just answered them. I thought it was safe. I thought it was just between us and his music. Safe. The word was a bitter laugh that escaped my lips. You thought bleeding our savings dry for a stranger who now has blackmail material on us was safe. Sarah, this isn't just about the money anymore. This is something else. Something far worse. My mind reeled, trying to process the implications. The musician, a seemingly gentle soul who played mournful tunes, was a predator. He had used her vulnerability, her pain, as leverage. Her hands flew to her mouth, muffling a sob. He said he wrote songs for people who had secrets. He said sometimes people needed to confess, and he was a good listener. He made it sound so cathartic. He was so sympathetic. I felt so understood for the first time in years. Her voice cracked. I didn't think he'd use it. I didn't think he'd threaten us. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling a wave of nausea wash over me. The image of the musician, his worn guitar, his sad, soulful eyes, suddenly twisted into something sinister. He wasn't just playing music, he was playing people, and Sarah, in her grief, had been his perfect target. What does he want, Sarah? Specifically, more isn't enough. How much more? She fumbled for her phone, her fingers still shaking. She managed to unlock it, her eyes scanning the screen. He wants another $5,000 by Friday. He says if he doesn't get it, he'll post the lyrics he wrote about us. He said they're beautifully tragic, and that the world deserves to hear our story. $5,000, on top of the thousands she'd already given him. It was astronomical, it was ruinous, and the threat, the idea of our most private, painful moment being broadcast to the world, twisted into a song by a stranger, was a violation of a magnitude I couldn't even fully comprehend. Most the lyrics, he's going to humiliate us publicly. My voice was strained, a raw nerve exposed. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, blurring her vision. He said he has an online following. He said people would pay to hear it. He said it would go viral. A cold dread settled deep within me, a chilling premonition of disaster. This wasn't just about our savings anymore. This was about our reputation, our privacy, our entire lives being thrown into a digital dumpster fire by a sociopathic musker. Why us, Sarah? Why did he pick us? What did you tell him that was so revealing? She looked at me, her eyes filled with a profound, desperate shame. I told him how much I regretted not telling you sooner that I was pregnant again, how I'd wanted to surprise you, but I was scared. Scared of how much we wanted it, and scared of what would happen if it didn't work out. I told him about the fear, the immense, crushing fear that haunted me even before we lost the first one. My heart hammered against my ribs. The fear of hope, the fear of loss, the fear of the unknown. That was it. That was the secret that had been eating her alive, the secret she'd confessed to a stranger, and the stranger was now holding it like a weapon. So, he knows about the second pregnancy, the one we never knew about. She choked out a sob, a raw, guttural sound. Yes, he knows. He said he saw the pain in my eyes, the unshed tears, and he just started asking the right questions. He said I was a walking tragedy. He was so convincing.
I slumped against the kitchen island, the cold granite doing nothing to quell the heat of my panic. The house, which had felt like a sanctuary just hours ago, now felt like a gilded cage, and we were trapped inside with a ticking time bomb. Sarah's confession had been a relief, a terrible, heartbreaking relief, but it had unearthed a deeper, more dangerous layer of betrayal. It wasn't just her secret from me, it was our secret, a hidden layer of our shared past that had been stolen and weaponized. "We have to pay him," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. It was a surrender, a bitter pill I never thought I'd have to swallow. "We have to get the money." Sarah shook her head, her eyes pleading. "But Mark, we don't have it. We don't have $5,000. We barely have anything left." The truth of her words landed like a punch to the gut. Our savings were depleted. The lake house, our dream, was a distant fantasy. We were broke, and now we were being extorted. The carefully constructed life we'd built together, brick by brick, was crumbling around us. "We'll figure it out," I said, trying to inject a confidence I didn't feel into my voice. "We'll sell something. We'll take out a loan. We'll do whatever it takes." But even as I spoke, a new wave of dread washed over me. What if paying him wasn't the end? What if this was just the beginning? What if he came back for more? He knew our deepest vulnerability.
He knew the pain that still echoed between us, the unspoken grief that had festered for years. He had turned our shared sorrow into a currency, and he was cashing in. The next few days were a blur of desperate phone calls, frantic online searches for quick loans, and hushed, terrified conversations between Sarah and me. We pawned some of my old watches, sold a few pieces of jewelry Sarah rarely wore. It wasn't enough, not even close. The pressure mounted, a physical weight crushing my chest. Every time Sarah's phone buzzed, we both jumped, anticipating the worst. On Thursday afternoon, just a day before the deadline, Sarah received another text. Her face went ashen. He's posted a preview," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Just a snippet of the lyrics. He's calling it The Song of the Unborn, and he said he'll release the full version tomorrow unless he gets the money." I snatched the phone from her hand, my fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar interface. I found the post. The lyrics were short, but they were chillingly accurate. They spoke of a hidden hope, a secret fear, a love that was never fully realized. It was a twisted, poetic summary of our private grief, laid bare for the world to dissect. The comments were already pouring in, a mix of sympathy, morbid curiosity, and speculation. People were tagging friends, sharing the post. It was going viral, just as he threatened. "He's twisting it, Sarah," I said, my voice tight with a rising panic. "He's making it sound like something sordid, like we did something wrong. This isn't our story anymore. It's his manufactured tragedy." Sarah sank onto a kitchen chair, her head in her hands. "What are we going to do, Mark? We can't stop him. We don't have the money. We're going to be ruined. Our lives, everything we've worked for." I looked at her, at the raw devastation etched on her face. I saw the years of silent suffering, the desperate attempt to find solace, and the catastrophic consequences. My anger, which had been simmering beneath the surface, began to subside, replaced by a profound, aching sadness and a fierce, protective resolve. He had taken something precious from us, something deeply personal, and had tried to monetize our pain. He had tried to break us, but he wouldn't. "No," I said, my voice firm, cutting through her despair. "He's not going to ruin us. We're not going to let him. We're not going to pay him. Not another penny." She looked up at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "But the lyrics, Mark, he'll release them. Everyone will know." "Let them know," I said, my voice a low growl. "Let them know that we loved. Let them know that we lost. Let them know that we are human, and that sometimes life deals you a hand you never expected. Let them know that grief is real, and that sometimes people make mistakes trying to cope with it. But let them also know that we are not going to be blackmailed. We are not going to be victimized by a parasite." I walked over to the phone, which Sarah had left on the counter. I picked it up, and with a steady hand, found the musician's profile. I didn't hesitate. I opened the comment section of his preview post. My fingers flew across the screen, typing out a response, not just to him, but to everyone who was watching. "To the artist who posted this," I began, my heart pounding, but my mind clear. "You have taken a private grief,
a profound loss that my wife and I have carried for years, and you have twisted it for your own gain. You preyed on her vulnerability, on her pain, and you have tried to extort us. What you call beautifully tragic is in reality the agonizing aftermath of losing a child we never knew. The lyrics you've posted are a violation of our deepest privacy, a weaponized confession of our sorrow. I paused, taking a deep breath. The house was silent. Sarah watched me, her breath held. We will not pay you. We will not be silenced by your threats. Instead, we will reclaim our story. Yes, we lost a child. It was a devastating experience that we have been processing privately. Sarah's attempts to find solace, however misguided, were born out of immense pain. But your actions have turned a shared tragedy into an opportunity for public humiliation. We refuse to participate in your sordid spectacle. I continued typing, the words flowing now, fueled by a righteous anger and a desperate need to regain control. We will face whatever consequences you bring. We will share our story on our own terms, with dignity and truth. We will not let you define us. To everyone reading this who might be touched by our story, know this. Grief is a powerful, isolating force, but it is not something to be exploited. It is something to be healed. Together, we will heal, and we will not be broken by someone who profits from pain. I hit post. The world outside the kitchen window seemed to hold its breath. The silence in the room was absolute. Sarah slowly stood up, her eyes fixed on me, her face a mixture of terror and a nascent, fragile hope. I looked at her, and for the first time in days, I saw not just fear, but a flicker of the woman I loved. The woman who had endured so much. The woman who was finally free from the shadow of secrecy. What happens now? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I met her gaze, a profound exhaustion settling into my bones, but also a strange sense of peace. We had made our stand. We had faced the monster, and we had refused to be its victim. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Now, I said, my voice rough, but steady, we pick up the pieces, and we start rebuilding. Our way, on our terms. The words hung in the air, a promise, a fragile beginning. The weight on my chest hadn't vanished, but it had shifted. It was no longer the crushing burden of a secret, but the heavy, yet manageable, burden of shared survival.